In March 2024, a Stanford computer science student named Alex Chen uploaded a 3-second voice clip to an AI model called ElevenLabs. The clip contained just 3 words: "Hello, how are you?" 30 seconds later, the AI had learned to speak in Alex's exact voice, complete with his slight California accent and the way he emphasized vowels. Alex then typed a full Shakespeare monologue, and the AI delivered it in his voice so perfectly that his own mother couldn't tell the difference. This wasn't science fiction, this was Tuesday afternoon. Until 2023, voice cloning required extensive audio samples. Companies like Lyrebird needed 30 minutes of clean speech to build a convincing voice model. Descript's overdub technology demanded even more data for professional results. Then everything changed when researchers at Microsoft's Beijing lab published a paper in December 2023 introducing Val-EX, a neural network that could clone any voice using just 3 seconds of audio. The breakthrough came from combining transformer architectures with something called few-shot learning, allowing the AI to capture the unique acoustic fingerprint of a human voice from an impossibly small sample. Dr. Sarah Zhang, who led the Microsoft research team, told MIT Technology Review that the key insight came from studying how humans recognize voices. "We don't need to hear someone talk for 30 minutes to know it's them," Zhang explained. 3 seconds is enough for our brains to identify vocal characteristics like pitch, tone, and speech patterns. Her team reverse-engineered this human ability, creating an AI that could extract what they called vocal DNA from minimal audio input. The implications were staggering. Content creators could now generate hours of narration from a brief recording. People with speech disabilities could preserve their voices before medical procedures. But the technology also opened doors that many wished had stayed closed. The first major controversy erupted in April 2024 when someone used the technology to clone the voice of deceased actor James Earl Jones. A 3-second clip from a 1977 Star Wars interview was fed into an open-source voice cloning model, and within minutes, fake audio of Jones endorsing a cryptocurrency scam was circulating on social media. The Jones family's legal team issued cease and desist orders, but the damage was done. The fake endorsement video garnered 2 million views before platforms could remove it. This wasn't an isolated incident. By June 24, the Federal Trade Commission had logged over 15,000 complaints about voice cloning scams, a 400% increase from the previous year. The technology's power became even more apparent when investigative journalist Maria Rodriguez tested it for The Washington Post. She obtained a 3-second audio clip of President Biden saying, "Good morning," from a public speech, then used it to generate a fake audio message about emergency military action. The synthetic speech was so convincing that 3 audio forensics experts initially authenticated it as genuine. Only advanced spectral analysis revealed the telltale signs of artificial generation. Rodriguez's experiment demonstrated that the barrier between authentic and synthetic speech had essentially disappeared. The breakthrough moment came on September 15, 2024, during a live demonstration at the TechCrunch Disrupt conference in San Francisco. ElevenLabs CEO Mati Stanishevsky stood before an audience of 3,000 technology leaders and played a 3-second recording of his grandmother speaking Polish. She had died 2 years earlier, but Stanishevsky had preserved this brief audio from a family dinner. In real time, he typed English text into the AI system, and his grandmother's voice began speaking fluent English with her original Polish accent and warm intonation. The auditorium fell silent. Several audience members were visibly emotional. Stanishevsky had just demonstrated that death was no longer a barrier to communication. The demonstration revealed the profound emotional power of voice cloning technology. Unlike visual deepfakes, which often feel uncanny and artificial, voice clones tap into something more primal. Dr. Michael Chen, a psychologist at UCLA who studies human-AI interaction, explained to Wired magazine that voices carry emotional weight that images cannot match. When we hear a loved one's voice, it activates the same neural pathways as if they were physically present, Chen noted. Voice cloning doesn't just recreate sound, it recreates presence. This emotional authenticity made the technology both incredibly powerful and potentially devastating. The security implications became clear when Europol released a report in October 2024 detailing how criminals were exploiting 3-second voice cloning for sophisticated fraud schemes. In one case documented by German police, scammers cloned an elderly woman's voice using a brief voicemail greeting, then called her grandson claiming to be in jail and needing bail money. The emotional manipulation was so effective that the grandson wired $15,000 before realizing he'd been deceived. The report identified 847 similar cases across Europe in just 3 months, with total losses exceeding $23 million. Meanwhile, the technology was creating unexpected opportunities in legitimate applications. Speechify, an AI reading app, partnered with the estate of Carl Sagan to recreate the astronomer's distinctive voice for educational content. Using archival recordings from Cosmos, they generated new narrations of scientific articles and research papers in Sagan's warm, contemplative tone. The project, approved by Sagan's widow Anne Druyan, brought the beloved science communicator's voice to a new generation studying astronomy and physics. The accessibility applications proved equally transformative. When ALS patient Jennifer Walsh learned she would lose her voice, she worked with researchers at Boston University to preserve it using just minutes of recorded speech. The AI model captured not just her words, but her laughter, her sighs, and the way she emphasized certain phrases when excited. 6 months after losing her natural voice, Walsh was able to communicate with her family using her preserved vocal identity through a text-to-speech device. Her daughter later told NPR that hearing her mother's actual voice rather than a robotic substitute made an enormous difference in their emotional connection. The race to regulate 3-second voice cloning began in earnest when California passed the Voice Act in November 2024, requiring explicit consent before using anyone's voice for AI training or synthesis. The law, championed by State Senator Maria Gonzalez, established criminal penalties for unauthorized voice cloning and created a registry where public figures could protect their vocal identity. Similar legislation emerged in New York, Texas, and the European Union, but the technology's rapid advancement consistently outpaced regulatory efforts. You're living through a fundamental shift in how we understand human identity and communication. The voice you hear speaking these words could be anyone, synthesized from any 3-second sample. This isn't a distant future scenario, it's happening right now, in real time, as you listen. The question isn't whether this technology will reshape society, but whether we can adapt quickly enough to preserve truth in a world where anyone can sound like anyone else. The 3-second threshold represents more than a technical achievement. It marks the moment when the human voice became as malleable as text, as copyable as a photograph, and as easily manipulated as any other digital medium. We've crossed into an era where hearing is no longer believing, where the most intimate form of human communication can be perfectly replicated by machines that never drew a breath. What happens when every voice becomes every other voice? But Zhang's team had discovered something far more disturbing during their testing. The AI wasn't just copying voices, it was learning to predict what people would say. After analyzing speech patterns from just 3 seconds of audio, the system could generate not only how someone sounded, but how they typically structured sentences, which words they emphasized, even their likely emotional responses. They had accidentally created a machine that didn't just steal voices, it stole personalities.